Well, welcome to day two of Making Startup Week 2020, the virtual edition. We have started live here at 11 o'clock. So I welcome you guys and girls who are out there in virtual land to our wonderful 2020 event. I want to first start off again and say thank you to the organizing committee. This program is put on by entrepreneurs for entrepreneurs. So everyone who helped organize this are individuals here in this community who want to see great things happen for the entrepreneurial community. And so are all the different participants we have. Also, I want to take a moment to thank our sponsors, Knight Foundation, the Macon Chamber, Newtown Macon, SCORE, the SBDC, and others. So thank you all very much for all your help. We look forward to seeing you guys throughout the week. Without further ado, we'll get started with our 11 o'clock session. I want to introduce our speaker, our presenter, and our leader for the next hour, Mr. John David Miller, JD. I have a hard time saying John David, JD. So JD is going to be spending the next about an hour with us talking about business mantras and how his use of yoga has helped his business over the past, 15 years now, JD? Been a long time, 5 years of practicing it, so a long time. JD enjoys the practice of yoga, and after several years, he actually went off and became a certified yoga instructor. So JD's day job is a financial advisor. JD is a two-time Making Startup Week speaker. Last year, he spoke about finance, and this year we asked him to come back and take us through sort of how he helps manage and balance work and life. Because we all know entrepreneurs can sometimes get so busy and so focused into what they're doing to serve their clients, their community, and their employees that they'll forget to take care of themselves. So if you have not already noticed, there is a chat function there on the right-hand side of your screen, ladies and gentlemen. So please feel free to click on that. And as you go through, please type any questions or any other comments or thoughts you'll have. I'll be monitoring those throughout the session, and I'll come back towards the end to help JD answer any pressing questions people have listed. And please feel free to come back to every other session. We have them throughout the day and throughout the rest of the week. And with that, Mr. JD, I will give you the floor, sir.
Thank you, Rob. I appreciate you. Rob and other folks at Making Startup Week, thank you for having me. I'm passionate about this work, and I love sharing. And it's an honor to spend some time with you. So there's a question that we're all asked is, why do we do what we do? Or how have you decided to become an entrepreneur? And the Making Startup Week talks about starting and growing. And so I've interviewed a few hundred business owners over the last 15 years. And I want to share with you a handful of tools and resources to put in your toolbox that will help you, whether you're starting a business or whether you're growing a business. So looking forward to spending some time with you and share. So Matthew Michael and the folks at M&R titled this Business Mantra. So the first question is, what the heck's a mantra? And how does that affect me being an entrepreneur? And Webster says mantra is a word or a sound that's used to aid concentration. Sometimes there's a religious connotation. Somebody uses it in meditation. And one of the things that really resonated with me, one of my business mentors shared, is that when we're born, we start hearing language from our parents and from our family and from people that are around us. It's a record button is pressed on this inner tape recorder. And as we're going through life, up until about 6 or 7 years old, it's listening and it's developing identity, it's developing strengths, weaknesses, fears, insecurities. And then when we get to be about 7 to 9 years old, the stop button is pressed and then play is pressed. And it's play on repeat, like on Spotify, the loop, same sound, same thoughts over and over. And so one of the first things in business, you've probably heard it discussed, positive self-talk or positive affirmations, or just helping rewire some of that subconscious. And so what a couple of things I wanted to share with you first is just this mindset of being a business owner or mindset of being an entrepreneur. And we've got to acknowledge when things get uncertain and we don't know what's going on, we don't know where our next check is going to come from, or we don't know where our next deal is going to come from. If we can learn to fall back on our truths and fall back on things we can be confident in, that's one place that we can escape this fear trap or escape the being paralyzed by fear. So the first thing is, if we think about this mindset, this business, this belief, is that we need to talk to ourselves versus listen to ourselves. And that was one of the first, I'd heard that in a sermon, talking to ourselves versus listening to ourselves. Okay, now what do we tell ourselves in business? So we've got to organize our own energy and to take action. And then we'll eventually begin to organize the energy of those around us. So what I put on the board over here, first of all, is mind and body. So one of the practice of yoga means yoke or union, and it's a connection. Somebody said, hey, what's the difference in yoga and other exercise? I'd say it's the combination of the connection between the mind and the body, the mind and the breath, the practice and the mindset. And so in the practice of yoga, we talk about having an intention or having a mantra that we're thinking about, whether it's gratitude or appreciation. And so that's the first thing in business, is what's going to be your mindset that you're going to tell yourself over and over. What's the word or the sound that's going to aid in your concentration? The second thing, we think about mind and body. The psychiatrists will tell us that there's this discussion. If the body gets sick, does that make the mind negative or sick? Or if the mind is negative and sick, does that make the body sick? And so when I work with new salespeople or work with new business owners or other entrepreneurs, we spend a lot of time on the front end trying to understand what's their thinking like. Some people talk about being a positive person or a negative person as a result of your environment. One of the things I learned from my mom in a very challenging situation with a brother with special needs and her having a child with special needs is she became a chosen optimist, choosing to rely on the promises that we have. So with this mind-body connection, what I want to guide us through, first, just a simple awareness that if you're a new entrepreneur or you're starting a business, you're trying to grow a business, it's quite normal to be fearful. And we've all heard talks and YouTube videos and Instagram videos that fear kills dreams. Fear prevents us from taking action. And one of the things about the practice of yoga is it's a chance to practice confronting fear. And it's a chance to, in a safe environment, work on things that challenge us. So when we talk about mind and body connection, the first thing is that we need to acknowledge that our mind, unattended or unguided, is probably going to shift to the negative. It's probably going to shift to worry. It's probably going to shift to fear. So if we can consciously shift those thoughts to positive, to optimistic, to promises, that's a great start. The next thing, so in our brains over time, another acknowledgement, another truth is our brains are wired to protect us. And so when I, 11 years ago now, left a salaried position to move to a all commission, no sort of base salary role, there was a lot of fear with that. And a lot of times you talk to the people that love you the most and care for you the most, and they're the ones that are most concerned and trying to lovingly encourage you not to do something that could hurt you. They'll say like, oh, just you ought to stick it out. If any of you have had to leave one of those positions to start something, then that may resonate. You know what we're talking about. And so to acknowledge that our brains are wired to protect us, to prevent us from taking action, that's a good truth to be aware of, so then we can act in spite of it. One of the pieces of fear that in the yoga practice we talk about is replacing the unknown with curiosity. And so instead of saying, hey, that pose is scary, or this business prospect is scary, or this idea, or if you're in management or any other area you're in, if you've done something you haven't done before, is to exchange fear with curiosity and replace the unknown with a sense of an adventure versus a sense of fear. So I'll give you an example. We'll do when I prepared this talk, we were talking about business and yoga training, and the combination. And then everybody's like, well, what poses are you going to do? So let me share a couple of poses with y'all. So this, and I'll come back to this later as far as before meetings, some pre-performance rituals that you can use. But if you were to turn your hand over and grab the fronts of your fingers and begin to stretch back on your forearms, some people can come all the way back and touch their fingers to their wrist. How does that feel to you? It's different for each person. All right, now the mindset as we go into this, as we get to that edge, now there is sometimes sensation of pain. And if there's been an injury, then we've got to be quite conscious of pain. In yoga classes, I talk about if it's painful, we're not talking about exploring the pain, but we're just saying, hey, is that sensation or is that actual pain? If you're in a business where you have to call on prospects, is that phoning reluctance actual pain, or is it just aversion? Is it unknown, so it's scary? So if you take just a posture here of stretching your forearm, and you can change arms, change hands, come to that edge. And when you reach that edge, like, okay, am I in pain or is this just sensation? Okay, it's sensation. What if I go just a little bit further, or a little bit further, or a little bit further, and just play with that over time and greet it with curiosity. Some of the classes I attended early on, there would be men and women, mainly women, that could do full splits or a full forward fold. And they would fold over like pancake batter. And then some of the rest of us, when I started, I couldn't touch my toes. And the sensation or the joy in the ride is in the progress. And so when I stopped at the wellness center at about 30 years old, and the person assessed me and said, hey, you can't touch your toes, and at your age, that's going to create problems later. It was a milestone in my life, awakened me to, I need to start doing some things differently or I'm really going to be stiff. But there was a lot of joy in that journey to being able to touch my toes. Here's how this can relate in business. We know that comparison robs us of joy. Sometimes getting on Facebook or Instagram and looking at other people's highlight reels, that doesn't resonate. We can be joyful for them, but it doesn't always encourage us with an unconscious mind. We have to consciously choose to be joyful and learn from their successes. But in the practice of yoga and in the practice of business, to look at your own journey and celebrate that, where you are in that moment, that was one of the first lessons that I really appreciated, is learning to celebrate where you are. So whether you're here or all the way back, wherever you are, you're just playing with your edge. And in business, that is the edge in business, whether it's pursuing a larger deal, whether it's prospecting to expand your market, whether that's hiring another person. There's a number of edges that we are going to approach in business. And that's one of the reasons the practice of yoga, there's so many metaphors that are useful there. All right, just like tools in the toolbox or like a buffet, I'm going to just plow through a lot of these. And if it resonates with you, write it down, and please follow up with me if there's anything I can share with you. All right, so replacing the unknown with curiosity, a sense of curiosity. I met with the business owner yesterday, and we were at lunch, and in preparation for the talk, I was asking him, I said, hey, what are some of the things that you wished you had embraced earlier on or wish you had done earlier on? And many of them were around fear. So a lot of us that when we get started running a business, it's all about making a paycheck or paying your bills or paying your taxes or providing for your family. And that, while that can serve as a motivator, that a lot of times won't take us to the next level or won't allow our business to go to the next level. And what he was saying is he wished earlier on he had sought out more mentors and sought out more people to encourage. So in a yoga studio, and I've practiced at Sparks Yoga for years, before that at Hometown and Homegrown, you'll meet a lot of folks that are encouraging, not unlike this Making Startup Week, not unlike the Business Mixers or Young Professionals Network. And to find people that will encourage you along the way and have experienced some of the things you're experiencing, it's been discussed a lot about mentors, but seeking them out early and listening to what they have to say, being coachable, being humble, and being willing to accept their feedback. All right, so what are some ways that we can replace the fear with truth? What I wrote up here, feeling follows movement. So it said you can't behave your way out of a problem, you can't think your way out of a problem you've behaved your way into. And action and activity is usually what drives business results versus strategic thinking and waiting by the phone or waiting aggressively on your inbox for somebody to contact you. Strategic thinking is absolutely important, but that has to be yoked, or that has to be union with movement and with activity. And so when we talk about feeling following movement, I've experienced it myself and met plenty of colleagues like, gosh, I just don't feel like doing X, Y, Z, fill in the blanks. What do you have to do to run your business? What do you have to do to grow your business? What do you have to do to serve the industry that you're serving? And if we wait to see if we feel like doing it, we're probably never going to do it. And here's a perfect example. I don't know that you'll ever think back in your own life and think of a time when you unintentionally saved too much money, or you unintentionally ate fewer calories and didn't overindulge, or accidentally woke up early to go to the gym or woke up early to go exercise. Those sorts of things don't happen without intention. Now, I can promise you, I used to get up at 3:58 in the morning, and I did it for about 5 years, and it was to go join some guys at 5 in the morning to run. And every one of us at 5 in the morning, we would feel fantastic afterwards, but you don't wake up at 3:58 or at 4:30 or at 5:30 or 6 and just unintentionally is like, man, I just happened to wake up and happened to go join some people to exercise. And so the paradigm shift, the turning point, a particular piece of mindset has to be that you will be rewarded for movement and you'll be rewarded for activity, but not to use the feeling like it as the trigger to do it. So I got to go to Toastmasters years ago, and one of the women talked about laying her jogging shoes out the night before, and as a ritual to put the shoes by the door, to get everything completely ready as a way to prepare to do it versus waiting to see if you feel like doing it. So in business, we could all probably nail down, if we can't, we need to be able to nail down what are the 2 or 3 activities or behaviors that you need to demonstrate or you need to participate in to grow your business, either to start it or to grow it. In my business, a lot of it is prospecting and it's calling on people. And it's real easy to stay busy in the business, just working with existing relationships or working on just busy work or administrative work, than to go do those couple of things. And so just like getting up early to go run, there's got to be a plan to do it. It's not just going to happen accidentally. And so the feeling following the movement awareness is to not wait for motivation in your business. There's probably never going to feel like a right time to stop your job to grow your business. There's probably never going to feel like the right time to make a major change in your life to get the outcomes that you want. One of the pieces here, activity plus attitude, mindset, beliefs equal results. And so I've heard it said activity plus behavior equals results, activity plus attitude equal results, activity plus mindset. And what the connection I want to make with you here, again, somebody shared it with me early on and it would just really change the way I proceeded, is if we say, okay, we know we want positive results, and that's business growth, that's revenue, it's maybe revenue per transaction, it's any number of your business metrics. What is the belief and the mindset that you need to have, and what's the activity you need to take? This goes back to you can't think your way out of a problem you behaved your way into. Or you could call this the art and the science, is what I wrote beneath here. If the science of your business is you need to make 10 presentations for 3 people to take action, then that's your science, that's your funnel, if you're familiar with that concept. And you can focus on putting more people into the funnel, and then a certain number of people are going to come out. I had a friend that used to sell cars off Riverside, and he would say, JD, if I approach 10 people, about half of them would be approved for financing or have the money to buy, and about 2 of them would take action promptly. And so the way he could make more money or serve more people or sell more cars is just talk to more people. We call that the science of your business. Seeing more people, reaching into new markets, expanding into new territories. The art of the business is working on mindset, belief, attitude, soft skills, emotional intelligence, IQ and EQ. And you can't educate yourself into success without going out and doing a certain amount of activity. and just going out mindlessly doing activity over and over and over, you may not get the outcome you're wanting as well. So this simple awareness of the art and the science and how those interact, and then the simple awareness of you've got to do movement to have that feeling or to have that outcome follow. All right, we'll pause here and we'll do another heart opener. So somebody asked, hey, before a meeting, what are a couple of yoga poses that can be useful? One of them, if you sit at a desk or you've been in Zoom meetings all day, we call them heart openers. And you can bring your arms out wide around you and then reach around to the back and bend your elbows so you can clasp your hands together. Once you clasp your hands, and this may be where you stay, and just like the example I used, once you arrive at a pose, you first of all, you greet it with stillness, thinking about gratitude, paying attention to breath, breathing in and breathing out. And then you may be able to stretch your arms down your back or maybe bring them up behind you. But you're just looking for the edge. And when we think about the curiosity, so when you go into a pose initially, you're like, oh my gosh, that hurts. Like if you grab somebody, it's like, hey, I wasn't expecting this. Hold on. Once you get your mind right of, okay, I'm in a safe place. How far does my body let me go? How my bones are put together and my joints are put together. Like, where's my edge? Once you reach that edge, okay, is that sensation or pain? Okay, it's just sensation. All right, let me send breath to it. Let me breathe through it. And let me find that foundation of gratitude. And so when I'm mentioning breath, in the practice of yoga, one of the quickest ways to return to gratitude or to your intention is to think about breath. And so in business, when you're at your edge, or maybe you're fearful, or you're just needing to find grounding, you're afloat, focusing on the breath and returning to your breath is a very useful practice. So let me give you a couple of pieces on breath. First of all, the simple fact that you're breathing, that means you're alive. And so that's a good sign. And I have a guy that I see every once in a while, and he's like, hey, if I'm on the right side of the dirt, I'm grateful. So coming to breath allows us to find a place, just if you think about Maslow hierarchy of needs, we're just the very fundamental level, we're breathing, and we ought to be grateful for that. We have another day to serve others. We have another day to be grateful, another day, a gift of life. In the breath, we talk about box breathing, and I've heard it said that Navy SEALs use box breathing, professional athletes use box breathing. So this is a tool in your toolbox for business. If you find yourself hyperventilating before a talk, if you find yourself worried, can't go to sleep the night before a big deal, if you have major opportunity or anxiety, box breathing is an inhale for usually 4 seconds, holding for 4 seconds, exhaling for 4 seconds, holding for 4 seconds. It's just circular. So the way it works is inhale, and y'all can do this with me. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, pause, 2, 3, 4, exhale, 2, 3, 4, pause, 2, 3, 4, inhale, 2, 3, 4, exhale. If you follow that rhythm. All right, so 4 breaths, 4 counts on an inhale, hold for 4 counts, exhale for 4 counts, hold for 4 counts, and so on and so forth. And so in the middle of the business day or in the middle of your routine, to be able to shift back to your breath is a way that we can calm ourselves down. Physiologically, we can calm our mind, we can calm our spirit, we can calm our body. If any of you have been told, or if you've heard, whether it's for parenting, to take a time out or to count to 10, or if you're in traffic and road raging or in Atlanta on 285, is take some deep breaths. This is all connected to that science and that ideology around breath. All right, so for the art and the science, taking action, knowing what our outcomes are, becoming aware of our inputs and outputs is one of the first things. So if you're in this seminar and you're wanting to grow your business or start your business, the awareness of fear, the connection of your inputs and your outputs, those are some great foundational places that you can use to grow. All right, another piece that I want to connect with is if we want to, I'd say, dissect or study our feelings. So in the practice of yoga and in life, if we feel good, we tend to do good or we'll do better. And if you just don't feel well, you're probably not as likely to get out and practice hard or play hard or work hard. And I was talking to my wife the other day, and I says, "Hey, how's your energy?" or "How are you feeling?" And to be able to ask a couple of questions of ourselves and others, we can then take action on it. We can probably all think of somebody that we worked with in the past that just didn't have great energy, and a lot of times they just didn't feel good. And so I want to share with you a formula that can be used to check in on how you feel, and then for the purpose of being able to take better action in our work or in our businesses. The formula is simple. First of all, it's diet and exercise. And so as a business person or an entrepreneur or a leader in any capacity, what we put into our body is of critical importance, and it's going to really connect with how we feel. And so when I say diet, I don't necessarily mean a diet for weight loss. I'm just saying something green, something good, something that makes you feel good. If you're drinking full sugar rock stars or monsters and you wonder why you feel sluggish later in the day, I worked with somebody and her lunch every day was a bag of chips and a Mountain Dew. And over time, that doesn't usually give good outcomes. And so what you put into your body is at the end of the day, you're just like, God, I feel terrible. What did you put in your body? If you wake up the next day, I had something with a ton of sodium the night before, and the next morning you just feel dehydrated. It's like, golly, that had a lot of sodium or a lot of salt in it. So what you put in your body, you don't have to go much further into the way someone feels than to look at what their diet is and what they're eating. The second is there any movement? And so as Rob said in the introduction, I got really hooked on yoga about 5 years ago. And I had really benefited. I mentioned running with these guys and doing some running. And that was tremendously rewarding in life and the time with those men. But over time, they all moved away and everybody had kids and other things going on. And I found that in a 1-hour yoga class, I could experience as much physiological benefit as I used to experience in a half marathon or a marathon or just long, many hours on the road. And so the exercise piece, whether it's yoga, whether it's jogging, whether it's walking, it's just some sort of movement. If somebody doesn't feel good, or if you yourself don't feel good, the second question you ask yourself after what did I put in my body is what sort of movement have I done today? So speaking of movement, we'll share the third pose that I'll give you today. So we talk about balancing poses. So we'll come back to this in just a second. Before a meeting or before a big presentation, or whether you're using your box breathing or you're settling yourself down or you're finding gratitude, another example in the metaphor in yoga classes with balancing is it has a way of causing you not to be able to hold a lot else in your mind when you're just trying not to fall down. And so one of the poses that we'll do is these standing poses. We call them tree pose, where you stand and put your leg up. You've probably seen this on Facebook or Instagram, but the one I'll share with you this morning is if you just come to standing and then lift the foot up. So if you're standing here, you could talk about tying your shoe. You could, anything you need to just stand on one foot. And so part of the reason I'm wearing a suit today is I'm trying to demonstrate that you can do any of this movement in your business clothes or in your work clothes, depending on what your office environment is. So first of all, just coming to a balancing pose, it forces you, the grounded leg, to pay attention to that big toe and that pinky toe and to hold yourself up in the balance. When you're holding yourself up in balance, you're not thinking about problems. You're not thinking about distractions. You're not thinking that whole negative self-talk that without conscious interaction that can take over. It forces you just think about, okay, I'm grounded. I'm pressing down with my toes. I'm holding myself up on one foot. Okay, I've got some sensation in my hips. This leg is starting to talk to me. It's burning a little bit. And then I'm breathing, paying attention to my breath as my heart rate goes up, because this is a stressful position, so to speak. My heart rate's going up, so I'm paying attention to my breathing. Because I'm breathing, I'm grateful to be alive. Hold that for a couple more seconds, and then let it go. And then shake that out. It feels wonderful to come out of that for a second. And then you switch legs. Stand, ground down through the left leg, raise the right leg. Hold. You can come to a balancing pose. Go back to your mindset. What foundation am I on? My toes pressed down. Is my knee strong? Am I holding? Paying attention to breath. Inhaling and exhaling. Go through that. And then let it go. All right, so after a balance pose, after a little bit of movement, after a little bit of exercise, right now sitting down, my legs are tingling. So it's a good feeling to have a little movement. To insert movement or exercise into your day, it's so important, it cannot not happen. And here's what I mean. If you were to walk around and interview 100 people, most people say the reason they don't exercise is they don't have time to do it. And we all have the same number of hours in the day. So back to the intention, the folks in the gym, they don't have time to do it either, but they're making time to do it. And so it's almost may sound strange. Why would we talk about exercise for entrepreneurs? Why would we talk about exercise as being such an important part of growing your business or growing your life or being a leader or a better family person? And it's that we're put together and designed in a way that if we have exercise and we have movement, we feel good or we feel better. So back to the self-analysis of this quadrant of trying to figure out, why do we feel the way we feel? Have you had any exercise? And if you haven't, humbly suggest that could be something you'll add in and feel a lot better. Next, I want to go to what you put in your mind. So we've got diet. What do we put in our body? We have exercise. What do we do with our body? And movement. Next is what do we put in our mind? One of the early books that I was given when I was starting a business is Darren Hardy, The Compound Effect. And he talks about if what we put in our body and if what we put in our mind day in and day out is going to affect how we act and behave, and how we act and behave is going to affect our outcomes. That's back to this other formula here. And our attitude and mindset is going to affect how we interact with our prospects or with our clients, and that's going to affect our results. So what you put in your mind is of critical importance. There's some people that just need to turn off the news, and they may need to get off Facebook for a month, or may need to. I jokingly said the Facebook or Instagram algorithm, when I got real intentional of adding people and intentional of unsubscribing or blocking people, you can really pay attention to how you feel as you scroll your wall or as you look at your For You or recommended For You. And so becoming conscious of what goes in our mind, Darren Hardy in his book, he talks about if you're only reading tabloids and you're only looking at trash news or celebrity gossip, you're probably not going to feel really good. And so to reflect on a day to say, did you practice your spiritual disciplines? Did you do a personal devotion? Did you read something positive, something inspirational? What did you put into your mind? That is critical importance. The final piece is what amount of rest did you get? So first of all, we'll just think sleep. How many articles have you read that Americans need more sleep? And I know it sounds strange. How do we accelerate or grow by resting? But to perform well, you've got to rest well. So in a yoga class, we will notice at the end of the hour, this final pose is a resting pose called Shavasana or corpse pose. And it's the celebration of the end of the physical practice. And the harder you work in the 50 minutes or so leading up to that pose, the easier it is to rest. And one of the first yoga teachers that I worked with up in Atlanta, she had said she could tell the people that had really worked hard because they rested so well and they could lay there without fidgeting. And so the thing that I would share with you is if you're not intentional with the bedtime or not intentional with the wake up time, then it's probably you're going to have a hard time operating at peak performance. And so the reason I'm sharing this with you is not a you should, but is a, hey, here's a tool to help you, has benefited me so much over the years to just kind of think like, how do I feel today? Well, one, is it COVID? We always laugh about that now. But how do I feel? And then past that, what inputs did I give my mind and my body and my soul and my spirit before the day? And was I intentional with those pieces? Another piece on the exercise and the movement is it said if you'll take a problem out on a run, you'll come back with a solution. And while in a yoga class, we talk a lot about mindset and letting the outside world go and just staying on your mat, there is something special and amazing about going and exercising. And sometimes you just feel different and you'll come back and approach, whether it's a disagreement with a colleague or a family member or a significant other, a problem you're working on in your mind, just going out and having some movement, and many times that you can return with a solution. Let me share with you another heart opener that can be used in the middle of the business day. So we talked a minute ago about binding our hands and stretching our shoulders. Another one is if you'll raise your right hand up as high as you can, stretch it up, and you're looking for a stretch in this side body. So this side body, this part of your body, you don't get a lot of movement in it during the day. Maybe as a child when you're raising your hand in school. So raise your arm up as high as you can, bring your arm up against your ear, and begin to lower your hand so that your elbow is pressed up. And then you're going to start to work your hand up. You can see my fingers to whatever their edge is. My edge is about right here. And then, so needing either a strap or a belt or something, you're eventually going to try to work your fingers together. That movement has been so rewarding in that when I first started this, hands were so far apart. There's tons of sensation, maybe even pain when you lift up. And then you slowly begin to work your arms together, just with curiosity on the journey. Now, we all have two sides. One side of our body, some of these standing poses, you may be really firm and stable on one leg, and then you switch legs and you're not as firm and stable. On the left arm, my shoulder's totally different. And so it's a lot different being apart. And so there's a level of greeting that journey with curiosity as you're working towards bringing your arms together. But the most important is not just bringing your arms together, just making that connection with your edge. So in business, the connection here is there's some things we're really good at. Some people love prospecting or love being face people or being relationship people. I get a lot of energy by being around groups, even groups of strangers. Other folks, they get energy from the analytics or from the data or certain other aspects of the job. And the lesson that's learned on the mat and in yoga is we all have those sometimes counterbalanced strengths, and to celebrate that and to use that to our advantage. Let me pause there, Rob, and do a quick check-in on energy. Any recurring themes in the chat that we want to talk about as we begin to wrap up our time together?
So I think everybody is a lot more limber now. We all are very clear on how unflexible we are.
Sure.
And I think we're all very clear on something you hit. There's a lot that came along around the fact, and something you said about the fact that we need to take time for what's important. So I think maybe you talk about the idea of around your time management with that. That's a great area of time management. Might be something entrepreneurs are terrible at the fact that we, as you said, we're so focused on some of the other stuff. How do we take the time for ourselves in this?
Great question. Thank you, Rob. Yeah, let's talk about time management or calendar setup. So back when we said everybody's got the same number of hours in the day, there's been said that if we can condition ourselves to say that that if we all start with the same number of hours, then different people have different advantages. But let's just talk about the use of time in the day. The first are the big rocks, and that illustration, you can Google big rocks on YouTube and watch it. I would imagine most people in this audience have interacted and heard of the big rocks exercise. The first piece is that if you can't show it to me, I've heard it said, if you can't show me in your checkbook register or online or on Mint or on Quicken where you spent money on it, and if you can't show me in your day timer or your calendar or your Outlook that you've spent time on it, it's not important to you. In my world, if you don't post it, plan it, and record it, it doesn't exist. So from a time management or setting up a calendar, the first thing we would say is show me on your calendar, and this is not me micromanaging or being a parent or being a boss, but show me on your calendar where you've made exercise important to you. Show me on your calendar where you've made your positive, like when do you spend your time in meditation or in thought or in strategy? Show me on your calendar where you've spent time to work on relationships with those that love you and those that you love. Show me on your calendar where you've spent time to work on your business or those pieces. And so what we'll literally do is take the calendar and always start with, let's start with 5 a.m. to 5 p.m. And let's see from 5 to 5 what that looks like. And then let's look at 5 to 10, 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. And so we first start with sleep. Are you a 6-hour sleeper? Are you an 8-hour sleeper? Do you need 10? There's a lot of iPhone tools on sleep studies, just informal sleep studies. I've been blessed, just like my mom, I work great on 6 hours. And that's a huge privilege that I'm thrilled to enjoy. I used to be 10 hours, and I had a hard time in Athens making it to 8 a.m. classes. And then a few years later, I was up running at 5 in the morning. So scheduling your sleep is real important. Another side anecdotal, sleeping with a timer it can be helpful. And here's what I mean. If you're an 8-hour person, set an 8-hour timer. So if you go to bed at 10 o'clock at night, you should be waking up at 6 in the morning. But if you go to bed at 8 o'clock, so the point is, if you sleep with a timer and you know, okay, I need 6 hours or I need 8 hours, you can start with your wake up time and then determine your bedtime versus hey, if I ended up going to bed at 11, now, et cetera. So first, scheduling the sleep time. The second, and I've had business mentors say this, put your exercise on your calendar as if it's one of your biggest clients. So when we're setting our calendar up, if one of our best clients or one of our best prospects calls us and say, hey, can you get together? The answer, of course, is yes, and we're going to put it on our calendar. We need to go into the week putting our exercise, and they say, and our family on there as our biggest clients and as our biggest prospects. It's that important that they deserve an hour of our time. I've had the privilege of interacting with folks that make over $1,000 an hour to be a millionaire or a 7-figure earner. And they'll still spend an hour exercising. So indirectly, it's like they're spending $1,000 to go exercise, but it's that important. Once it's on the calendar, then we get into executing it, preparing for it. So the gym memberships, everybody knows that people sign up for them and then don't attend, or they'll have a New Year's resolution that they don't follow through. Again, I had the privilege several years ago in Toastmasters of studying New Year's resolutions and which ones actually stuck versus which ones were abandoned. And one of the reasons the exercise one, the diet one, the drinking alcohol one, all of those maybe top 3 resolutions that people tend to make, the reason they say they don't follow through with them is they failed to put them on their calendar. And here's what I mean. They failed to accommodate what they were going to have to give up to do it. Darren Hardy in his Compound Effect book also refers to, if you can't show me what you're willing to give up, then you're going to have a hard time doing what you're saying you're going to add in. So if somebody says, hey, JD, I want to start coming to the yoga studio, I want to practice an hour a week, what else are they going to have to give up? It's like, well, do you have a particular television show or routine that you watch? Are there other activities or habits or rituals that you're participating in or hobbies? So being aware of what you're going to have to give up on the calendar is important. Another example of tracking or showing me on a calendar or showing yourself on a calendar or in a checkbook register that it was important to you would be if you were to do a food journal, and if you were to look at like MyFitnessPal and pay attention to what you've eaten. If somebody says, hey, I'm going to operate on a 1,500 or 2,000 or whatever's healthy for you calorie diet, you're going to have to forego and give up a lot of the Halloween candy that's been hanging out at a lot of the offices that I've visited recently. So being in a food journal, you become super conscious of what you're not eating. Like, oh, I'm not going to have the cake or the dessert or the seconds or the thirds. But in our time journal or in our calendar, we've got to realize what are we doing that's not reflected there. I have a business mentor that meets with me regularly, and one of the first things she'll ask is, let's look at your calendar. And what have you been doing that you haven't listed here? And what have you listed here that you haven't been doing? And so if you have a intention of, I'm going to go to the gym 3 times a week, and I'm going to go walk, maybe with a significant other or spouse, or I'm going to go spend time in movement, first of all, putting it on there, and then secondly, not giving it up or rescheduling it if something else comes up that's important. Great question, Rob and others, on calendar management. In Outlook, you have different colors. And one of the things that they say is take your big rocks or your most important activities and put your exercise in that same color. And then show me on your calendar where you had a chance to do it. I'll share with this group the doing something a little bit every day or a little bit frequently, or doing something a little bit all the time is better than doing a lot of it some of the time. And so a little bit all the time is better than a lot of it some of the time. In business, that could be prospecting. That could be sharing your brand or your product. It's better to share it all the time, a little bit, than to just try to reserve all of your prospecting to 1 or 2 days a week or 1 or 2 days a month. Exercise the same way. Mark Zuckerberg a couple years ago challenged to do this 1-year run streak, and a handful of us all committed to do that. And the whole goal was Mark and his wife were going to run 1 mile a day, every single day, for all of, I believe it was 2016 when that challenge came out. It may have been 2015. I think some of you on this have done that. And the point is, if you spend 8 to 12 minutes just out moving every day, that's a great thing. And he and his wife did it. I did it. A number of other folks that we know did that every single day, just a little bit every day. And it was amazing. At the end of the year, you turn around and you've run or walked 365 miles. And it didn't happen without being intentional to it. Great question, Rob. As we move towards our next presenter, anything else that would be good to circle back on or expand on?
JD, I think you did an amazing job of covering everything. I'll tell you that the text chat section is covered with gratitudes and platitudes about your awesomeness and your dudeness in yoga among some of your friends and people that if you noticed, you would know.
Yeah,
I think you've done an amazing job for us, JD. Is there anything you want to wrap up or summarize here at the end for us?
Love to have y'all come out to the studio. There's outside yoga, yoga, just whatever movement works for you.
JD?
Over at Sparks Yoga on Washington Avenue. Look them up on Facebook or on the web, and yeah, come try it out.
Fantastic. Well, JD, again, I want to tell you thank you on behalf of the over 100 attendees we've had so far this week and the organizing community and the entrepreneur community. Thank you for being an active participant and an active mentor in everything we've done to continue to grow our organization. If any of you ever have a chance to spend chat time with JD, I actually share a co-working office with him, and we bump into each other. And I will promise you there are conversations still drawn on pictures in my walls that we have put together in my office. And so, please, if you ever see him, take a chance to talk to him and tell him thank you face to face, and we hope we can get together soon. So, JD, thank you very much. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we have a next session coming up here at 12 o'clock. So we'll take a couple-minute break to reset the stage for Matt McKenna from SCORE to talk about business planning. So again, JD, thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you for attending. And we will see you again at another session later today or during the week.